Shane, are we recording here?
Yep, just started.
Thank you. Well, welcome to our 1Q26 recap and update. We've got a couple things that we want to run through on the call today. We've got an hour scheduled, but if we can put time back on your calendars, that'd be great. We want to do a quick overview on an event that we had here at Rockpile. Go through a couple slides. I want to make sure that I level set for anyone who's not familiar with the RPS Tracker platform. And then we'll go ahead and turn it over to Bill for platform updates and some of the things that we're seeing and hearing in conversations that we're having. And then Bill has some exciting things to share about some things him and his team are focusing on here in second quarter. We'd like to close with an open discussion. Hopefully there'll be questions and or perhaps some specific needs around current or future projects that your mass haul teams are going to be looking at moving forward through 2026. Are you still getting an echo, Bill?
It's okay.
It's okay. Great. So first and foremost, this is something we're really proud of here at Rockpile. February was our 6-year anniversary. And so congratulations to Alan and Bill and the collective Rockpile team. Just really excited to hit that 6-year benchmark. And we have a lot of momentum and wins in the sales with everything that we're doing here. As you may know and be familiar with our RPS command library solution, this solution is designed specifically for Trimble Business Center users. And we have a number of different resources and different trainings and courses that we have available for all of our command library users. And this is a big piece of Rockpile. One of the things that we did in January was our second Power User Conference. We held it in Boulder, Colorado. And that was primarily focused for that command library audience as a whole. One of the things that we also had an opportunity to do for this event was do a kickoff case study and overview with one of our customers, Landmark Construction. And so this is a preview, but we've put together it's under 10-minute video that's highlighting their use case and how they've leveraged Tracker on different projects. So again, just to give a quick background for anyone who's not familiar with the RPS Tracker platform, we're focused on improving haul cycle efficiency and lowering earth moving costs across mixed fleet mass haul projects. A lot of people that we talk to will say, we have a lot of different ways that we collect data on projects, and a lot of people are still using manual methods. Doesn't mean that these methods don't work, but they're maybe not the best quality of data. They're certainly not real-time metrics that can have actionable decisions made and or insights or recommendations based on the data that's coming in off the project site. So again, these old ways still work, but we always are trying to help people understand that RPS Tracker is helping teams lower earth moving costs on mixed fleet mass haul projects by providing real-time visibility into machine utilization, precision tracking of every load and dump, and also being able to monitor operator performance. The RPS Tracker platform is basically the hardware. It's a tablet, it's smart data collector over there on the left, and a wireless sensor over on the right. The sensor is mag mounted. The tablet is suction cup mounted. And so it works with any make, model, year. It's OEM agnostic. And these kits are really easy to install and uninstall on fleets doing any project mass haul on road or off road. When we look at breaking down how we help our customers, this is an 8-phase cycle analysis that just gives you a quick visual of how we monitor all load and dump haul activities on mass haul. And Bill's going to be illustrating some of how the screens and the screen flows work in just the day-to-day operational visibility and monitoring of load and haul machines on projects. The key personas or the roles that we focus on are GPS teams. These are folks that are typically doing a lot of loads, dumps, counts, understanding volumes, focused on what materials are being used, where the placement of those materials are, and a lot of other key responsibilities on site. We also focus on drivers and operators, and it's usually the supervisors and the people that are actually overseeing, making sure that every shift, the maximum productivity and efficiency is being leveraged on tasks being assigned to drivers and operators. We also have data that ties into site and project management teams, ultimately senior level managers and senior teams, and also partners and other collaborators that may be involved on projects. So there's a lot of reporting and daily visibility that we provide through the RPS Tracker solution. I'm still getting a horrible echo here, Bill. I don't know if it's coming through or not, but it's really difficult. Can you hear me okay without an echo?
We're good.
Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to take a quick pause. Any questions about the overview I just went through? Great. Bill, I'll turn it over to you here.
All right. Let's go with this screen. Okay, you know, what we're going to do is really say what's different, but after we do that, we can show you some of things that you might not be familiar with in here. So the first part of it is that if you remember, you know, the end of the last quarter, what we were working on was trying to identify bunch ups, you know, where as Colin was saying, we analyze each phase. And I guess if I step back, remember our mission is to count load dump information, get your stats, your numbers. But our real focus, our where we're putting all the effort is after counting, why are my numbers what they are, and what can we do about it to make them better? And as long as we just report on what we did, then we're doomed to do just as good the next day and the next day if we don't take some action to reduce the cost or time involved in the mass haul operation. So we really analyze waiting up front, loading, how long are they loading? Are the guys pulling over waiting on the trucks behind them to get loaded? Because we like to travel in groups. While we're traveling, who's pulling over to check their text messages, things like that, you know, we keep an eye on it. And so back here on the loading, waiting to be loaded, you want a truck ready to pull in, of course, but you also don't want 2 or 3 trucks backed up, parked all the time. So always, if you have these bunch ups happening, that's effectively wasting equipment throughout the day because of the bunch up. And so you need to understand, why do I have bunch ups and how does the supervisor rebalance the assignments to excavators so we don't over-resource them and things like that. So to that end, what we do is, I know you guys probably aren't familiar with it, but our equipment snapshot here is the best overview of what's going on right now or what went on a particular day on the site. So we have for every task or crew or excavator assignment group, we've got the trucks that are assigned to that, and the motion activity is in blue, not motion, parked idle time, wasting money is in gray. And then we're looking at dump events and load events for that particular piece of equipment. So we can do driver to driver pacing. And then we always sort the groups with the worst performer up top, the best performer at the bottom. So if you're going to do anything to improve, like this particular crew here on this excavator, then you might want to talk to this operator or focus on them before you talk to your guy doing the best work down here. So what's new is that you remember last time we turned on the bunch up analysis. And so with bunch ups, yellow is one truck was waiting behind the truck that's being loaded. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the real thing is how long was he waiting? And so you can begin to look at the length of the yellow line to see what those delays are. But the red lines are where you start seeing 2, 3, and 4 trucks bunched up in line waiting their turn, and they just all inch forward over time. Well, this is kind of hard to see because this particular site was running all night. So if you just go in and we'll just more focus in on what was going on through the day and zoom into that a little bit more closely. That's where you can see, for example, here's a bunch up of 4 trucks, and this truck stopped, waited, move forward, waited, and finally got loaded right here. So looking through these to understand how much bunch ups are occurring, and when they occur, you want to be real sensitive to, if we start seeing bunch ups occurring a lot before lunch, then we better clean up or rebalance that equipment for it to not be happening after lunch. So that's the tool. How are we going to improve our numbers as opposed to just report on numbers? And so that's what we're doing with bunch ups. And then the other thing that we did last quarter is, we're real keen on not using or depending upon geofences to trigger things like load and dumps. That ends up putting push pins right at the boundary where they went into a geofence. You don't know where the loads really occurred, where the dumps really occurred, and a poor audit process. So we know with our dump sensor exactly where the dumps occurred, and we know now with our proximity, and proxy is not quite accurate enough, with the excavator telling the truck that I loaded you, we really increase the accuracy of that. And I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds here, but if you had the product, you'd want to be in the weeds and looking at it. So if I jump into let's go back, start back here. If I was on this, looking at, say, this particular truck right here, and there's where he got loaded, there's where he dumped, you can just double click, go into the journal on him, and let's see what that truck was doing that day. So I see all his hauls, all of our geofences through here. We know the haul paths down here, the lollipops where he was doing the dumping. The particular dump we clicked on right there was this dump. And of course, you can animate and see where they went from there going forward. So in looking at that, that's one view of what this one truck was doing. But I can read it like a book. I can see the trails over here. But if I want to go in and look at more of just a data view as opposed to a map flow process view, then I can launch it right here. And what you'll see then is, here is that data view of, in this case, the whole day of all trucks. I could filter it down to any particular truck or material type or loads or dumps. But what I want to show you what's new is in our loading process. And let me click on a map here, and you can see I've got it filtered down to just show loads for that day. So you can tell obviously that the first thing is no, we're not using kind of dumb geofences. We know exactly where those loads occurred. And now that I know the loads and where the activity was, you begin to have conversations like, oh, I didn't know we were working this area and we got this many loads in out of it. You'll never get that with just a geofence view, right? So if I take this and I look under the covers, let me turn on some more detailed data. I'm going to turn on some detail that we're now gaining that said when this load occurred, of course, I know what excavator did the loading. I know the position of the excavator. I know the lat long position of the truck when it was loaded. But we're also getting very good accuracy without having to depend at all on RTK or a base station network or communications and all that. This is communication between the excavator and the truck with no cell network, nothing in there. It's just the wireless communication between them. And so in general, in this environment, we're seeing each set of data giving us an accuracy of 1 meter, 1.5 meters, 1.4 meters, 1 meter. So we're really pleased with the accuracy that we're getting on our loading and dumping process. But that was new. The ability to track the load to this level of detail was just a nice enhancement, we felt like, for us. And so that was looking back on what we did. Now, looking forward to what we've been working on that is coming out very soon, we'll say certainly within weeks, is one of them is that when people get Tracker, they want to learn to use it. And it's hard to learn to use it and all the reporting and understanding the analysis of it when you don't have much data yet. And so what we've done is created a environment where we recorded the activity that went on a real site. And now we can go into kind of our training environment here, open up that real site. And this is the data streaming in from a real site, and Tracker doesn't know there aren't real trucks running around doing this. So we recorded it, and now we play it back each day of a week, and it essentially cycles from week to week. But in here now, as a new person using Tracker, I can see what a site would look like with lots of equipment, recording lots of data and activity. And then I see it, of course, assigned by this excavator crew versus general site hauling activity. And this truck's down in maintenance mode. So we can allocate for him, and we can hit the eyeball and find him, where is he getting maintained. And in this case, he's in maintenance mode down at the dealership where the truck was leased from. So we know where he's at. If we want to go find other equipment, just hit the eyeball and you can go locate them and get right to them. So now that we have live data streaming in for you kind of learn how to use the system, you can kick into doing some neat reporting of, as we say, let's go in and look at, what's been going on this particular site, your site, my site. And so here's all the detail events. So far on this day, they've done almost 1,100 dumps, 26,000 cubic yards. But where were we working? And here you can see the load activity, the dump activity, where that activity was going on. And people begin to ask questions like, oh, I didn't know we were still doing any dumping down here. Are we still working on that? How much have we been doing in this area? And well, so far today, and then you just go in and kind of rope that area and say, tell me just about this. And so if I generate a report on that, these are those dumps, and there was 29 of them, little over just 700 cubic yards that we put in there. So not a lot of activity today in that particular space. But this now we think it's much easier for someone to go in and learn how to access the data and how to use it and what I can do with it when they don't have to rely on their early days of they don't have much of their own data yet. So we think that this is going to be a good sort of training education tool to give people access to. Another thing that is new is I showed you earlier the equipment journal, where, for example, on this particular site, if I went and looked at a particular truck journal, the equipment journal, where I can audit it, what's he doing? And I can see what that truck did and all the lollipops of loads and dumps and what happened at what time of day and that type of thing. But that's for one. And so what we wanted to do is be able to give you a better way to see, but what's going on sort of in the big view of my site. I can see where everything is right now, but give me a better view. And we call this the all equipment journal or the journal snapshot. So if I take this and go into the journal snapshot, let's pick today. It's very much like the journal entry we were seeing for one truck, but now we're seeing everything that's been going on today. You can go to any day of the week that you want. Everything that's been going on. Here's all the snail trails of all the equipment combined. Here's all the loading and dumping activity that's gone on this site. You begin to be able to see things like, okay, we were seeing a little bit of activity here in the path and who was doing that. We can hover over any snail trail. And I think I had seen earlier, like, here's an anomaly. Okay, a couple of dumps up here. Well, who's been doing that? When did they do that? Was that right? Was that driver going where we told them to and they finally caught on? So you're finding out if your material is being placed where you expected it to be placed. Are they following the haul path going in the directions? Do you have anyone going the wrong way on a haul path? That's what we're trying to do here with the sort of the equipment snapshot for the day, where we're blending everything together. And again, I'm really keen on where did we get loaded? Where did we dump? Not in general, not by geofence, because that's just a boundary line, right? But you can see we know really where all that material was being placed. And if you want to, you can start playing over here with your timeline to see things like, okay, at what time was the loading and dumping activity happening through here? So I think I can, nope, I don't know how to show what I'm trying to show you here. But this view, we think, is a nice addition to what's going on the site overall. And of course, that was today, but gosh, what about Monday? You know, show me what was going on this site, where we worked, where the load and dump activity was occurring, and audit what was happening on Monday. And on Monday, we still had equipment down here at the dealership, actually two pieces of equipment, the 542 and the 546. And I can see where they were testing that equipment in their yard here behind the building at the dealership. And then I can always go back to any particular piece of equipment up here. And as I showed you, we can go into a timeline and show you at any time of day where were all the pieces of equipment at that point. And something that frankly, I'm kind of proud of the guys being able to do, but the uh, ability to animate the equipment all at the same time. So if you were at Puck, you would have seen us talking about, I think I have a picture back here of, yeah, that event where a truck came down through here, wrecked, be turned over. And turning over, by the way, is a dump event. He said a truck pulled out in front of him, and we were able to just go in and say, hey, show me within the 1 minute of that dump everything that was around this roped area of the wreck. And it popped out that this was the particular truck that pulled out in front of him. So this driver was right. It was accurate. This is the truck that pulled out and what did it. Well, we reported on that. We could do that with individual journals, but I'm really pleased that now we can go in, run our timeline to that time, hit play, and we can watch the interaction of those trucks and where other trucks, maybe someone forced one into a lane that they shouldn't have. And so that's something I'm excited to be able to help us understand the process of moving the equipment and the process of managing the operations as opposed to just, again, counting. I don't have much to say about this last thing, but I will say that we are continuing to make progress on our scraper sensor. So we're calling it a scraper sensor, but it's actually technically a material sensor. And so that piece is going into trials where we have iterations of the mount where it just mag mounts, point it down into the bed of the pan of the scraper. It learns what empty looks like, and then it starts monitoring material rising and falling out of the scraper pan and treating that as a vector-based load process and a vector-based dump process. And so I'm tickled to get that out in the field and start testing that. We have information now to know that the solar panel that we're putting on this one is going to be able to run endlessly with lots of spare capacity. So, you could put this one in a warehouse for 30 days and it would still run. And if it drained, you could take it outside and within about 3 hours, it'd be up charging and able to run again forever until you didn't have sunlight for 30 days. So this is a new piece that we're working on. Again, we're not really trying to emphasize being in the hardware business, but on the other hand, when we can't find hardware that people need, we'll generate it if we need to. And as we've shown in the past, the simple dump sensor was a huge success, and we are seeing our 3 years plus on a little commodity item like this as far as the battery lasting and such. So that's worked out real well. And that's caused us to turn around and focus on an automated awareness of the load process when you don't control the thing that is loading it. So for example, a scraper, you don't have an excavator that we can tell it you got loaded. So we need something like this. But you might also put this on a on-road haul truck that goes to a third-party rock quarry and picks up a load. Well, you could stick this on the side of the near the headboard, and it would know wherever that truck was, wherever it got loaded, even though it wasn't your equipment that was loading it. So that's what we're trying to do with the material sensor. piece. So I bounced around, if y'all would just, what questions do you have? Is there anything really that you'd like to see? Because you're probably not real familiar with Tracker, and we can always do a more detail of that. But is that useful, interesting? Anything you'd like for me to go into more detail on?
If I'm not mistaken, is your dump is captured by the dump truck. Did you say that the dump is captured by the truck? Is the load captured from the excavator?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
it's a list of choices that you have when you define the task, the assignment for your trucks. You have the choice of saying, okay, and I'm going to be very frank here. I'm going to sit in the back office. I don't get involved with these trucks. I'm going to make the drivers do it. And so you're like in the old clicker days of making them count. You're going to get suspect data, but you have the option of saying on the tablet screen, I got a load button. They pick the material and we're loaded. They got a dump button. That's possible. Don't do it. The next level is well, I've got geofences on my site, and I'll use geofences to define what's going on. And so when they go into geofence, we'll trigger a load or trigger a dump. But then we've talked about the problem with geofence-based loading and dumping would be like on this example. If I had used geofence dumping here, all of my dumps would be right there on the geofence, not where they actually occurred. So yes, geofence works. And by the way, the other problem is that, operationally, they traveled through several active dump geofences to get to this one. So if they do that, how do you keep it from triggering in this geofence when they actually went on and dumped in this geofence? So to us, geofences are useful for smaller projects, clear one load geofence, one dump geofence, but I really don't like that. What I like is I want to know that this excavator loaded this piece of equipment and it happened right here. This is the place where the load occurred. And I don't depend on a geofence to do that, because that's not going to give me my accuracy, and I have my pass-through problems and all. And so we recommend that the excavators tell it that I loaded you. Now, something that's interesting is imagine that you have taken, I think I can show this maybe back here. So imagine that these are excavator crews here, and these trucks are assigned to these excavators. In your operations, there's two modes that you tend to do that. One is you work this excavator, and now you're on his crew, so to speak, and we'll check the performance of that set of equipment. But the reality is that there are times when you have excavators working in near proximity to each other, and you want to treat them all as a group, and the truck needs to pull up and stop at the excavator that has the least amount of trucks waiting on it, the excavator that will service me more quickly. And so we have a feature in the excavator process where when the truck pulls up to an excavator and he's within reach of the arm of the excavator and knows that he's being loaded, he looks and says, am I still on this excavator's crew, or is this a different excavator? You can check a box in here and say, yeah, we're doing self-balancing. Now you're part of his crew. And that will be moved from one excavator crew to the other excavator crew automatically. You imagine logistics. No one had to go into a tablet or a web page and reassign that truck. no one got on the radio and said, hey, push this button, I'm switching you, no supervisor. So we're automatically moving the truck from one excavator crew to another if you want that feature turned on. So that's all new for us. We've done excavator loading, but frankly, it wasn't accurate enough. And now we've got it down to where it's pretty daggone accurate, and it handles the case of automatic reassignment of trucks to excavators. Is that useful?
Yes, sir. You mentioned like in the manual, you could, tell it what material. So if you're doing it like the auto, how does it know what material it is and like capture the cubic yards for that?
Okay, think about who knows what material's being loaded. Is it the engineer who believes that this is what material we should be loading, who's not on site? Is he an authoritative source? Know that they're loading cohesive versus topsoil? The next one is, what about the driver? I don't know if your drivers are kind of different from other drivers, but our experience is that they're not the greatest expertise that you have on your job site for knowing material types such. Our opinion is, and our recommendation is that it's the excavator operator that knows what material he's loading. He is the authoritative source. And so on his tablet, he goes in at either, the start of the week, the start of the day, or after lunch. Whenever he moves into a different material type, he hits the button on there that says, this is the material I'm loading now. The list that he chooses from is what the engineering people gave him. That's the only thing he can choose from. But when he switches from, I'm over here in the muck or loading topsoil, and now I've moved to a different material type, then he hits that button and it's locked into that. And all the loads indefinitely, that's what the truck will be told is the material type that's going in you until he chooses to move it to a different one. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think I shouldn't be doing this kind of live on the fly, but I believe if I go in and here's where you would go in and say, for this particular excavator, I want a screen to be green with white letters, maybe the name of the project or task, and all these buttons that I can put on his screen. I just want one button here, and I'm going to call that, it's a load button. I'm going to call it set material to give him a hint about what happens when he pushes that button. And then when he pushes that button, am I going to assign a material to him and not ask? Or do I want him to select? So in this case, I want him to select, and I want him to select from these two choices only. And by default, I'm going to start him with this choice. And then we apply that. So now any excavator that's working this particular task or assignment, it'll default to cohesive. He'll have these two choices, and the excavator operator is going to control what trucks get what material gets assigned to trucks. And it is it's this material until I tell you it's different. And I know we're getting into the weeds again, but there generally you can see two things. This works for front end loaders as well as excavators. And so you can imagine a case of a front end loader being in a stockpile area with 3 different material types in the stockpile. That guy may go and get 2 or 3 loads of one material, load trucks with that, then switch over to a different material type, hit the button, now I'm loading this, and do it. So in a stockpile situation, they'll be switching a lot. In a traditional, excavator loading out on a site, they switch materials fairly infrequently. Interesting, isn't it? Mhm.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight.
Yeah. Is there any other part of the sort of hauling, loading process? I mean, we've talked about real-time views. We talked about if you really want to manage it as opposed to report on it, then all of our customers, they're going to live in the equipment snapshot. I want to see what's been going on today. I want to see the load dump cadence of my equipment. I want to see what tasks I've got them assigned to, who's working what excavators, who do I have doing the early finishing or general site prep or site maintenance work, as opposed to this tends to be design work. Uh, you know, what do I have going on my site? What are my stats? And then I think you've seen maybe where we go in and say, let's look at it a little bit more closely. What's moving makes more money than not. So we look for idle and park time. So this piece of equipment was idle parked 8% of the time. And this one down here, 15% of the time. And an average of all of these as a group, 28%. So you start comparing, one excavator crew over another one, who's getting the work done versus who's waiting. And that's what leads you into, well, why are they waiting? And then you start turning on bunch ups and analyzing that, oh gosh, this particular excavator crew is just wasting equipment, trucks sitting there waiting all the time. We need to do something about that. So that's the flow where you don't reduce your cost for a project because you counted everything and tracked it to great detail, right? That's looking backwards. You need to figure out, how can I do my process more efficiently? How can I achieve a better, more efficient cycle? That's how I'm going to reduce my costs. And if I do this process cycle analysis real time, in time to correct it and fix it, what I saw before lunch, I better adjust it by after lunch. If you do that, you reduce your costs, and all the numbers and stats we're talking about fall out of this for free. Very accurate load location, very accurate dump location, very accurate timing for those cycles, and what operators are performing better and what aren't, and that type of thing. So that's really where we're trying to stay focused, is not stop at reporting. Help me understand what we're doing. Okay, any other questions or areas? I know sometimes people will say, yeah, I know, I see all my raw data, my loads and dumps, but let me go in and say, well, since Monday of this week on this particular site, last few days, let's pick that. And I want to see by day and location. So on Monday, we did 2,000 loads, 49,000, 50,000 cubic yards on that day. Well, let's open that up. Well, here are the geofences. Where did those dumps go in those geofences over here? So the big activity on that was the Basin 5 and Basin E1 is where most of the activity went for them. And then you say, well, 21 loads. Who was doing that? Why did we just have 20? Let me click on that one. And now everything's sort of cross-linked so that you come back and say, okay, here's my 21 loads. Here's what trucks were doing that. And here's where they were occurring on my site. And, there now you're beginning to understand again the process of what's happening, what went where. And I know it's fairly rare, but we just finished about a 4-year project on a cleanup remediation site in Toronto. And it's very important on remediation projects to track exactly every load, where it started and where did that load go. And so if we get into loads and dumps, I think I won't take the time here, but you can hover over any load or any dump and we'll show you the corresponding load that goes with it. So that's very important to audit on remediation. And then if you start reporting by like material types and all, you get to looking at, well, did the material go where it was supposed to go? And that's, again, not to point fingers, but engineers know where it's supposed to go. And they only set up geofences and things like that for what's supposed to happen. But if you're really wanting to control your cost and managing your people and your process, you aren't so focused on where it's supposed to go. You want to look and analyze, where did it go? Where are they moving it? What really happened? And is that what we wanted to happen? And you do that by location, by material type, and lots of different Rubik's Cube ways that you start twisting that around to make sure what you wanted to happen is happening. I'm sorry, I can I can ramble on, but that's the a lot of what we're trying to do is verify, where did it go. If I said, well, on this particular day, I want to look in a different way about where my load and dump activity went. And so I can go in and select geofences or just turn them all on and say, well, we did here 535 dumps in this geofence, about 13,000 cubic yards over here. And start viewing it from this direction, or select only which geofences you're interested in today individually and then aggregate them together. So I see as a whole how we did. By material type. It's very quick to get a good snapshot view of where we're going. And a popular feature is that, Colin showed, I think if we go down here, right, the guys with the clickers and everything trying to get the counts together so we can send out, most everyone sends out a text message or an email of, here's what our counts were. And then the people they're sending it to and management can't always remember, well, I see the count, but I don't remember what the target or goal was for that project because we're into so many projects and it's just hard. And so in Tracker, you just go in and say, no, we need you to send, in the morning, I want to send out our counts for yesterday, last night, third shift, whatever you want to do. I want to send it to these people, and these folks down here want text messages, and these folks down here want emails. And so this is the actual text message that this customer's folks received this morning that says, yesterday we did 507, and here it is broken down by geofence. And there was no human intervention to try and quickly scramble to count everything, knowing you're going to be probably 20+% off on your manual counts in the first place. And you, as we said, go ahead and tell them the targets along with it so that management can see not only what we did, but how did we do against what we wanted to do. And then recognizing that targets might be different on, say, Saturday or Sunday because you're doing half shifts on those days. You got all that covered. And that's just automated. The system takes care of getting that out and informing them.
So on those geofences, are they like, is it like you set it once, like before the job or whatever, and then it's like that? Or can you kind of draw new geofences, during different phases of the project? How's that work?
Anytime you want. We call geofences locations. You go in and say, I want to, here's my locations that we have defined right now. And what if I want to do a new one, what I tend to do is say, I want to do a new geofence. And these construction sites don't always have clear addresses to look up and find where is this. And so what I tell folks is after you've done one geofence that is the big bounds of your project, then just go in and do everything relative to one that you've already done. So if I go in and turn on this geofence, and especially if what you're really wanting to do is create a geofence relative to some other one, like down here in this finishing area, let's say I'm ready to do a geofence in this spot. I'll turn on nearby geofences. So now I can go in and say, now I want this geofence right through here.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
And give it a title, hit save, and you've got a new geofence. But there's two important things about geofences. You can have a project that has a pot load of geofences. If I turn them all on, they're all over the place. And if you start looking at tasks you've assigned to trucks or something, you'll get so much data of, oh, he entered a geofence and he exited, and he entered an exit, entered an exit, when those geofences have nothing to do with what, he's trying to haul from this location to this one. I don't want all these pass through and detail along the way. So whenever you assign a task to a piece of equipment, you also say, and these are the geofences that are relevant to this piece of equipment's job. And only those geofences will be audited as far as him entering, exiting, pass through, and all of that. So that's one thing. Just because I created it doesn't mean that it's going to show up on every piece of equipment's report. The other part of it is that, in our education sessions, we try and let people know engineers think about geofences in terms of the design boundaries. Okay, so as a design boundary, they'll say, well, can I import them? Can I set them up like that? And, yeah, you can go that approach. But the problem is that the design boundary is not related to an operational boundary. Good example would be maybe we're going to work in this area right here. I have a choice. If I had a design boundary, it might look like this. Very accurate, very good design right there. Now, what's going to happen is that trucks are going to pull down the haul road or pull down the access road. And as the excavator's working down through this boundary edge, they're going to reach over the wall and put the load in the truck that's sitting outside of that boundary. So in reality, loads and really loading occurs often outside of the design boundary. And so what we say is that it's best for you to draw your operational boundaries differently than just using the design boundary, or you're going to miss some activity there. And an obvious one is maybe we're working on a Walmart pad. Well, you're not driving your truck onto the Walmart pad to do loads and dumps, right? You're going to work around it. But then the material needs to be applied to the pad. And so in that case, for operational, you'll extend the boundary of the pad around to include the truck hauling working area related to the pad. So more than you asked for, but that's our 2 cents on the types of locations. Extremely easy to go in and create them and define a new one and such, but I just really encourage you to think about how the truck and the equipment uses it, not how the design would think of that boundary. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts Anything sort of pique your interest in here? Let's see, as an example, you go in and take your, let's go here. You do your drone flights because you want to true up occasionally. And so you take your drone flight, pull the richest geotiff you can get out of it, whatever resolution you're capturing the data in, give it to us with a date time, drag in and add another drone flight to the list, make the most recent one the current one for your users in here in Tracker. And then when you do that, instead of showing a dumb Google map that's way out of date in here, we'll show you a map based on your drone map for all your background, and all your people looking at Tracker will get your most current drone flight, and they'll get it to the level of detail of whatever you give us, whatever you're flying with your drone. We'll get that in there. And then you always have the ability to go back and say, well, I sort of see what it is today. I wonder how that looked last year, and switch to an earlier drone flight. So that's very easy to adjust in here. And I'm showing everything flat, but it is, real 3D. And if you look at the detail, it's very, very detailed what's going on. You can't always see how much detail is there because we're at zoom levels looking at what's happening. But if you want to go in and see it here, we've got I think I can get down to him. Yeah, we've got his tablet up there, and wheels are rotating at the speed that he's currently traveling. All of that, it's pretty neat. And what you're seeing, like on this particular site, is quote real, but what you're seeing is probably 8 to 10 second delayed. So if you were looking out the window and a truck went by on the screen, it's going to be 8 or 10 seconds before it goes by, your window. I know we got 2 minutes left. Any questions? But I'll just say, remember that when you're looking at equipment on here, and you're usually wanting, what's my counts, what's my volume, what we do today. But there's someone, especially the owner in your organization, the owner's going to want to understand, for example, why, like in this case, there are 82 pieces of equipment online producing some level of work, but 24 pieces of equipment that are supposed to be online, they're not in maintenance mode. If they were there, we'd know it. Okay, explain to me why we have that much equipment that's not being used right now, though it's allocated to this project. I can use it somewhere else if you guys aren't going to. So again, that's where you begin to look at trying to control your costs from an owner project manager perspective, rather than just from a raw engineering perspective. And then if you do take that next step of 24 pieces of equipment, well, what are they? Well, down here, this is the equipment that you said should be used, and we can't account for it. Well, that CAT equipment, it was there yesterday. Where was it? Well, you can hit the eyeball and say, the last time we saw it was right here. So if you're trying to track down what happened for any of these, you at least have a starting place. And sometimes you'll track it down and you'll see it's in the maintenance shed or something like that. And you say, oh, they've turned off the master battery switch on it, and I see why it's not reporting in, and someone failed to mark it as in maintenance mode. So anyway, we've taken up your full hour. Any questions, any more that you'd like to see before we wrap up? We're good? Okay. Colin, I think we're set.
Great, Bill. Thanks for all your questions, Hunter, and your participation.